everyone, it's Jade from Shut Up and Rock On, and I am sitting down here with Ace Von Johnson of Faster Pussycat. Ace, how are you doing?
Doing very well. How are you?
Good, thanks for asking. So what have you guys been up to lately? We're in Rochester, New York tonight. Where were you guys yesterday?
That's a good question. We were in another part. I don't remember. We were in some part of northern New York, but I don't remember what city. I really don't.
You know, I feel.
Yeah, after 40 shows in a row, I kind of forget.
Yeah, I kind of
we
forget.
were in Brooklyn 2 days ago, and then somewhere else in the state last night, and then Rochester tonight, and then Toronto hopefully tomorrow.
Hopefully.
So that's 3 out of 4.
All goes well
Three
at
out of
custom.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start talking about some of your influences. I know you're a punk rock guy. Tell me, what were you listening to growing up?
I listen to everything. I mean, it's Creedence Clearwater Revival in the background right now. I love these guys. Actually, one of my first musical memories as a kid was CCR.
Really?
Yeah, I remember hearing Down on the Corner. Growing up, I didn't know about genres because it was sort of around the time as a kid when I got into music was just before the internet became a thing.
Yeah, you're young.
Sure.
Yeah.
Young enough. Nobody had a cell phone in high school until like their senior year for me, so that should be indicative.
Yes.
Anyways, I liked everything. I liked Soundgarden, rest in peace Cornell, of course. Soundgarden, Metallica, the Misfits, the Eagles, Megadeth,
Eagles, just throw them
just
in there.
CCR. I liked a lot of doo-wop stuff because my folks
Like
always
60 shit?
like 50s and 60s stuff, like Big Bopper and
Good
Chuck
stuff.
Berry and Fats Domino, Little Richard, stuff like that. So I had an eclectic taste as a kid. Huey Lewis and the News, just like random
Right,
stuff.
sports,
Yeah, totally. And then as I got older, and everybody can probably identify with this. In high school, there were the different cliques
Yeah.
based upon what genre of music a lot of them liked. So there was like the metal crowd and the goth crowd and the punk crowd. And I was sort of lampooned by all of them. I wasn't really cool enough for any of them. So I liked all of that stuff. And then as I started playing music into my later teens, I started a punk band, and then I played another punk band and another punk band and another punk band. And then I just was into punk rock for a really long time. And by the time I was 20, 21, 22, I kind of stopped listening so much that I was kind of reverting to more of an eclectic taste. And I was listening to a lot more rock stuff. So I was in my first half of my 20s, I really tried to actively get out of the punk scene and join a rock band.
Okay.
And here I am. So I guess how 15 years later. So
Right?
yeah.
So let's talk about the Misfits for a second. Michael Graves or Glenn Danzig?
Oh, well, that's the obvious answer. It's Glenn Danzig.
Well, some people don't even like Danzig anymore, and I don't get how you can.
Well,
like
just
Danzig.
because you don't like Danzig anymore doesn't mean that those first 6 years, without the Misfits from 1977, 1983 was like, not only was that the pinnacle of like real punk rock,
Yeah.
when stuff was, you're hand-making handbills and pasting them on telephone bills and touring, with a phone book and a van and all that stuff, and there's a lot to be said about that scene and that ethos. But I mean, those songs alone, really, like those early Misfits songs, I mean, that's like he was like the Elvis of punk rock.
Yeah,
So
Evil Elvis.
yeah, Evil Elvis. So yeah, I mean, he's obviously kind of, as a super fan, if you will, lost his way. But you know what, man? Nobody stays awesome forever. Other than David Bowie, he was good to the last drop.
Yep.
But yeah,
Do you
Glenn
like
Danzig.
the Michael Graves shit though?
I love the Michael Graves stuff. In hindsight, I love it. I wish it was called a different band,
Okay.
because then it'd be my.
Completely.
It's completely different. It was completely different. But now I'm glad that there's some amalgam of a reunion thing going on. But what Jerry has with his kid,
Yeah.
which is the different
I was
thing.
gonna ask you about that. 'cause
As-
it's
as a-
technically the Misfits now.
Yeah, as a fan, I think it's stupid, but I get it. We used to have the same booking agency,
Okay.
so I went and saw it a couple times, and I get it. And honestly, it's like if you went and saw Jerry Only's version of the Misfits recently, it's basically the crowd singing the whole show anyhow. So, but it ties into that whole I have to take everything with a massive grain of salt, because I can't sit here and be like, where the fuck's Glenn and where's this guy, where's that guy,
Half
when
of
I'm
fans do
when
the
I'm in
first
Faster
one.
Pussycat and people are like, where's Brent Muscat, where's this guy? So I would be a massive hypocrite if I really chewed anybody out for that. But you know what? We all got to work, and we all got to put food on the table. And so I'm glad that ultimately, same thing with his band, same thing with my band, same thing with a lot of bands. Just be grateful that the fucking drummer, and I won't name names or whatever, the keyboardist is still keeping the music going. And if you don't want to go see it, don't go see it. If you want to reminisce about 20 years ago or whatever, cool. But if you're like the young guy or whatever wants to take his kid, or you've never seen them or whatever, at least something's always better than nothing, So.
Right. Did you see either of the reunion shows?
I didn't because I was on tour. I had a ticket to both shows and I could not make it. So that's, what's fucked up is I've missed almost any band that I loved to the nines, I've missed. I've never seen Nine Inch Nails. I've never seen Ministry. I've never seen the Eagles. I've never seen that Misfits reunion, I should say. I have seen all the incarnations of the Misfits, though, in the last 20 years, because I'm always on tour. So, I miss weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, births, deaths, shows, tours, art galas, you name it, I miss it because I'm out here in Rochester or Sheboygan or Poughkeepsie or Duluth or, wherever, Edinburgh, somewhere else.
Yeah, because you are always doing something. I saw your tweet earlier, and you're like, I feel like I haven't put out a lot of music, because you said you want to have like a goal of like 5 music things a year.
Yeah, I could say this. I've got about 25 plus albums that I've played on in my personal discography.
I feel like most people don't even know that.
No, you'd have to really dig. It's all on. You'd have to look on like Wikipedia, or even really, it's all on my website, because I wanted to make sure that.
Yes.
If someone really cared enough to nerd out, that they'd be able to find it. But it's funny because since I've been in Pussycat for almost 7.5 years, 8 years now, I would say I've put out probably like 3 albums since then because I've been so busy with this goddamn band.
With this goddamn band. And what cues you to join Faster Pussycat? How does that all happen?
Well, funny enough, I was doing a band when I was 25 called the U.S. Bombs, and the singer Dwayne Peters and I were doing a bunch of projects, and our booking agent was a guy named Charlie Overby, and Charlie drafted me to be in his band called Charlie and the Valentine Killers, and we did a record which is actually out there in the ether. It's on iTunes if you look it up. So Charlie and the Valentine Killers, he just kind of reeled me in, kind of with what I was saying. I was in a punk band, and he was like, hey man, I've got this band with this guy from Danzig and this guy from LA Guns and this guy from Faster Pussycat, and the guy from Brian Forsyth from Kix was in the band, and he goes, I need a guitar player now. And I saw that as a window to get in out of the sort of punk scene and into the rock scene.
Yeah.
And I did that gig for 2 years. We did a bunch of dates all over the place with Reverend Horton Heat and Headcat, featuring Lemmy, rest in peace, brother, and we did a tour with country legend David Allan Coe, et cetera, et cetera. And our drummer, for the most part, was Chad. And actually, when it wasn't Chad, it was my old punk rock drummer Jake Margolis, who I brought in. And Jake Margolis is now in Everclear. So hey, Jake.
Okay.
Everybody kind of works their way up, if you work hard enough, etc. But so Chad at one point said, "Hey, Pussycat needs a guitar player, and Bob's your uncle. Here I am." So that was 2009, and I was 26, I think. Yeah, 2009, 2000. Yeah, sounds about right. Were you? Oh Jesus.
So let's talk about M3. How was that? Because obviously Tammy wasn't there at M3. But you guys pushed on and did your thing. You had that whole shit go down.
Yeah, we rallied, if you could say.
Yes.
We were doing an East Coast run, and he got really sick and sicker and sicker and sicker. And so we ended up canceling a show or two. I know one of them. And we took him to urgent care, and they basically turned him away. They said he was too sick, and he needed to go to the emergency room like immediately. So we took him to another hospital. Actually, what we did is we drove like 90 minutes to get close to M3 and then took him to the hospital.
Okay.
So, figured you're already suffering, might as well suffer a little more. So we took him to the hospital, and they admitted him, and they said hopefully he'll be out in 24 hours, and 24 hours came and went. And then another 24 hours came and went, and then by the following morning was the game day, if you will, and we needed to make a quick decision.
Yeah.
And so he basically said, do it. Just make it go.
Okay,
so we had about a 3 or 4 hour window. We started calling people. And we put in some calls. Some people didn't accommodate, and some people rose to the occasion. And I thought overall it was a really cool experience. And you know what? It's great is that I really feared some sort of backlash from the crowd, but I feel like we got a really overwhelming amount of support. And we just, Eddie Trunk helped by getting up there and just preemptively saying, hey, here's what's going on. The guys are going to play anyhow. And I thought I expected to see, not a lot, but let's say 5 to 10% of the people, like a noticeable amount of people I expected to see get up and go, okay, let's go to the bar or take a piss. Nope, I didn't see anything. I think maybe like 2 people. And for all I know, they could have just been getting a smoke or something, But it was really... I felt like everybody, fans and bands and friends alike, all rose to the occasion, and it was cool. And I saw some footage of it after the fact, and I thought it was pretty cool for what it was. And obviously, it's a one-time only thing, but it was a very, very stressful couple of days leading up to a massively stressful morning, I should say. On top of all the rigmarole that comes with it, like we had a meet and greet and like a press junket and all this other stuff.
You came back into the media area with Emily. Talking about all
and it was a handful, but we got through it, and once it was over, we were all relieved.
Sigh of relief.
I thought it went really well. All things considered. So so we did it, and then Tammy it took him about another couple days. I think 2 days later they released him from the hospital, and he's sober now, if you could believe that.
I know Ricky told me 9 weeks without smoking and drinking.
No smoking, no drinking, no other stuff. No fucking pork, no nothing. So he's like, he lost a bunch. He lost, I don't know how much weight. I'm not a scale, but I would say at least 20 pounds.
Really?
Yeah, he looks good. I've known him for nine years, and he's the thinnest I've ever seen him.
Really? So. Even Ricky told me, he's like, I thought hell would freeze over before I saw Tammy transform the way he just
The funny thing about Ricky is Tammy actually found an old coat of Ricky's that Ricky left at his house, and he goes, I never wore it before because I couldn't fit into it. Now I'm wearing it all the time because I can fit into it. And Ricky he was like, the last time I left that at your house because it didn't fit me anymore. And he's like, what's going on, So.
And you guys, Faster Pussycats, kind of like Monsters of Rock royalty on the cruise, and you guys were just added to 2018. So tell me about the cruise and all that, because I've never been on one. Next year is going to be my first year going on it. Cool. So tell me about it.
If you've never been, you're in for a hell of a ride. It's like summer camp. It's awesome. We are, in fact, the only band that's done all of them.
Yeah, that's right.
So they jokingly call us the belle of the ball. Mm-hmm. And we always try to keep it interesting. Sometimes we do costumes. Sometimes we do weird lighting things. We always have guests. Mm-hmm. We always try to keep it as wild and crazy as we can. I would even say, you can quote me on this, continuing to do these cruises has continued to keep me in the fucking band. Yeah, I mean, it's that much fun. So it's like every 6 months, 12 months, whatever. Sometimes they do them biannually, sometimes it's just once. I always go, okay, well, at least, the dredges of this, run or whatever, not even this tour, but, it gets exhausting doing this, like we were saying a minute ago. We're always out. I've been out for 5 weeks now. I got another 2 weeks to go, and then home for 2 weeks, then we leave again. So it's exhausting, but it's not what I'm getting at. Is it's nice to know that, okay, well, this kind of sucks, but at least at this point in the future, I'll have this vacation. You know what I mean? So, and it's cool, and I've made so many friends. I mean, hell, there was that drama like a year and a half ago. Drama's not even the right word, but blown out of proportion drama about us and Stryper, and then now like. I just talked to Michael Sweet like yesterday or today, like because of the cruise. Like he approached me, you know what I mean? Just everybody gets to know each other, and he was like, "Hey, man, sorry if my, whatever." Basically, Danny was just talking shit, and somebody quoted him on it, and he was trying to be funny, but they took it personally because in writing it looked terrible. Mm-hmm. And I'm bringing up old news, but anyways, there's no feud between the bands. It was just somebody. Some bullshit that was said in an interview, and it was meant to be a joke, but in writing it sounded malicious. But long story short, we're the same booking agent as Stryper, and those guys are awesome. I actually just went and saw Oz Fox in Vegas the other day, so they're awesome. If anyone wants to pass it along, there's nothing but love for Stryper from Pussycat. So.
And what was that band that you just recently did? You released an EP with them. What was it, like Neon Coven?
Yeah, Neon Coven, yeah. Neon Coven put out an EP January of this year, a couple months ago, that featured Jacob Bunton of Adler and Lynam fame. And he was the man behind the curtain on all the music, although he credited himself as the bass player. He basically did everything. So Jacob did most of it. I brought in our buddy Tony to sing, as we were talking about doing a project together, as were Jacob and I. Banged out an EP in a couple days. which I wish this band could do.
Are you guys doing anything?
And then we put it out, and we actually charted. We were doing all right in the independent rock charts. We were getting a lot of radio play, a lot of independent stuff. But as far as Pussycat putting out an EP, I would say, or anything new, honestly, I would just say don't. I would say don't hold your breath.
All right.
So,
and I know you're very an animal activist.
Absolutely.
That's kind of your thing. Tell me about that. You have a dog.
I do have a dog.
You only have one dog?
Yeah, I only have
I feel
one.
like you should have like 10.
I travel too much. I wish I could have 10. At some point in my life, I will have 10. But yeah, I do as much animal advocacy as possible, especially when it comes to Pitbull rescue. Yeah, I'm a huge Pitbull advocate.
Money.
What is this, for a strip club? A dinner buyout? Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of great groups out there. One that I'm constantly trying to rep. I'm surprised I'm not wearing the shirt right now, but one's called Stand Up for Pits. Okay. I love Stand Up for Pits. Another one's called Pinups for Pitbulls. I've been wearing a shirt of theirs this whole tour. It's a spoof of a Minor Threat shirt, the punk band Minor Threat. So instead of saying Minor Threat with the cover of their EP with them all sitting on this porch, it says Not a Threat, and it's a bunch of it's a bunch of pit bulls sitting on a porch. So it's
my dog.
Oh my God, you've got one too.
Yeah.
Here, I'll show you later. But yeah, so rescue an animal, rescue cat, rescue a squirrel, rescue a dog, rescue a pit bull, please. I'm constantly trying to encourage people. I'm constantly trying to sway people.
Social media and everything.
We actually 2 nights ago when we were in Brooklyn, we were parking the bus. The bus was still in gear, and there were 4 people, each with a pit bull. There were 4 pit bulls on the curb, and I was like, and I jumped out of the moving bus in my pajamas, and I literally did like a Bruce Springsteen dive on my knees. I was like, "Are they friendly?" And I just dove in, and they tried to warn me about how loving they were, and I know how they are, and I just got a mouthful of dog tongue and face and all that stuff, and it was great because it was nice to get the pit bull love, so. It was cool. Then where I'm going with this is at the end of the night, 2 of the 4 showed up at the club we played, and we're hanging out in the bar because they lived next door, so they knew the bartender and all this stuff. And we hung out there with these dogs for probably like 2 hours.
Really?
Had the door closed, so they were just running around. It's in my Twitter feed or whatever, but I've got this stupid fucking photo of me with this pit bull on my lap, and I have this giant shit-eating grin. I could swear, right? Yeah. Shit-eating grin on my face because I'm just so stoked to have this dog on my lap. But yeah, I'm a huge pit bull advocate.
Nice. Very good. So what are you up to now? What are you doing?
Oh man. So let's see. What am I doing? Let's see if I can run this down real quick. Neon Coven probably will do another EP. I'd like to say there'll be a Pussycat EP within the next, let's just call it 2 years, because I stopped holding my breath about 2 years ago, and I feel like we've gotten halfway, so I figured another 2 years, maybe something will come out.
So there's something in the works, for sure.
Yeah, we've been demoing stuff at Gilby Clark's house, but, it's just a matter of we're always so working and, traveling, and, with this thing with Tammy's health, and Christian moved out of state, and we've all got other projects, i.e. what I'll tell you now. So, and I'm trying to mow through all this because we're going on soon, but the band 69 Eyes from Europe, Yerky, his solo project, Yerky 69, he just put out an album on Cleopatra, and so I'll be I am his guitar player / music director, so putting a band together for him for some fall dates, possibly stuffed into next year. So there's that. I put together a band for Sylvain for the New York Dolls, including myself. And we had some dates earlier in the year, but we postponed. So hopefully that'll come back around. I'd really like to get that. Even though I've played with him before, I'd really like to maybe get like a week run under my belt just so I can say I toured with him. And, I idolized Johnny Thunders as a kid minus the heroin, which is why I always put LAMF on everything, because instead of like a motherfucker, I put LA motherfucker, like Los Angeles, because I'm one of 4 people that's in the music scene that was born there. So there's that. Steven Adler from obviously Guns N' Roses and I did a jam a couple months ago for the Ride for Ronnie event. Yeah. And so there's been talk about continuing that. I think he's going to call it Steven Adler and Friends. So I should be a part of that. So hopefully there'll be more of that. And I'm sure there's a plethora of other things. Oh, the Throbs.
This is part of the interview where I pull my fucking balls
This is part of the interview where I say we're done.
Talking about these nuts.
That's Danny Nordahl.
Suck them, take them.
Hey, Tender, you want to talk about the Throbs?
I love the Throbs.
So I'm in the Throbs now, Danny's band from the way back when. So is Chad.
Basically, Ace's rising.
They're my rising force for me to solo over. Yeah, I'm like their Yngwie.
Yeah, you're
So that's everything I think in a nutshell. I'm sure there's like 6 other projects that someone is gonna call me and be like, bro, you didn't mention
you're all over
fill in the
place,
blank. I'm just trying to hustle and stay busy, and I mean, there is that factor of ultimately, the guys are all older than me, and I'm not, and so I have to keep working and trying to hustle, and there's a eventuality of it is that I'm
Eventually you'll need to do
reasonably younger and will need to do other things. Yes.
Understood. And before I let you go, tell me, where can we follow you to keep up with all things you?
That's a good question. I have acevonjohnson.com, but it's super outdated. But if you're looking for anything weird, like my discography I mentioned, or my voiceover reels are on there, or pictures or weird stuff. But I just send everybody to Twitter. I like Twitter and Instagram. So at acevonjohnson. Danny's on Grindr. Swipe right on him. He loves that. So, and at Ace Von Johnson, Instagram, Twitter. I hate Facebook, so don't even bother with that. And I have one, but it's private, and I constantly. It's a personal page, but I'm constantly getting harangued about it. I'm like, it's for me to post my niece and my dog at the beach. It's not for every random person. So, although there is a Facebook like page, but I don't pay attention. I don't know. I'm too busy, and I got to run all the Faster Pussycat social media too. So I have like 7 outlets. My dog even has an Instagram, so I've got other stuff going on that keeps me from doing all the. There's no Snatch Pat or any of that for me, or whatever the kids are doing.
Snapchat?
Yeah, that.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.